All of a sudden, the lead surgeon straightened up and goes, "What the heck is that?"
And I noticed they wanted to dress up Miss Barbie, and she was going to marry Ken, and they were going to get married. I wasn't feeling that. My Barbie was a female version of Rambo. An old girl meant business.
We got ready to go. One guy grabbed me, threw me to the ground. The rest of the company bolted. The guy who grabbed me was the fastest one in the company, and I was pretty fast at the time.
The boss needed someone to recover the vehicle. When we got there, I saw the NGS on its side, and I began to see the extent of how you died.
Yoli Betancourt has served in the Army for more than 23 years. It's a job she loves, but it comes at a personal cost. Since the birth of her son, she's fought to balance motherhood with her lifelong dedication to military service. Yoli Betancourt.
I feel lucky to be a woman. Most importantly, I feel lucky to be a female warrior. My professional name is Master Sergeant Judy Yolanda Espinoza Betancourt. My friends and family call me Yoli. And as I reflect on this great adventure called life, I'm still pretty amazed on how I got where I am right now in my life. You see, I come from a very diverse background. My father is from Peru, South America. And in the late 1960s, he ended up going to Murray State University in Kentucky as a foreign exchange student. And that's where he met my mother, who was Caucasian, and she was studying to be a teacher. And they did something that was pretty taboo at that time. They fell in love and they got married, and they moved to Paducah, Kentucky. Well, 2 years later, I graced the world with my presence. And as my mother tells me this story many, many times, it's interesting because I really do think at that time I had warrior tendencies because I almost died. My poor mother, she suffered miserably for over 24 hours for hard labor. And considering I'm really a hard-headed woman, hard heads do run in our family, so I'm really sorry, Mom, about that suffering. I finally came out, and the very, very intoxicated doctor picked me up by my feet, right? And he was slapping me. I chose not to respond. I wasn't breathing. I wasn't doing anything. And there's my poor mother laying there, thinking I'm dead. She's gone through all that suffering. And I was actually really aggravating the doctor because why? He wanted to go get his drink on. So with that being said, after that 7th slap, he hauled off and knocked the craziness out of me. Well, according to my mother, I didn't cry. I screamed because I was pissed off. I was ready to fight the doctor, according to her. So when she told me that story, and I reflect on it right now, that kind of shows me that I was a warrior right then and there. Part of the warrior ethos. You never accept defeat and you never quit. So one thing I have to say that when I was in the nursery and my grandmother was there, she really wasn't happy when my mom and my dad got married because he was from a different country. But she was happy because she was going to finally be a grandmother and I was going to be her first granddaughter. And she felt like she had a moral obligation to tell everybody that walked by that nursery, because I was the only baby with black hair and black eyes, that that was her granddaughter. And she came up with a nickname. She made it clear to everybody. That's my granddaughter right there. You see her? Yeah, She is the very first Peruvian hillbilly half-breed, born right here in Paducah, Kentucky. Hey, whatever makes you happy. But since giving that nickname, I've generally been a very unusual person. And that was never more so as I grew up in this very diverse family. As a little girl, I clearly remember that I really didn't go for the ideologies of what the society thought a woman's role was supposed to be. And I definitely didn't think I was going to have a child. I didn't think anything about it. And when I was playing Barbie with my little friends, when I was a little girl, And I noticed they wanted to dress up Miss Barbie, and she was going to marry Ken, and they were going to get married. I wasn't feeling that. My Barbie was a female version of Rambo. An old girl meant business. Yeah, and she had no problem with Mr. Ken there because that was her battle buddy as long as he just stayed out of the way when needed. So obviously I'm very unique. The years go by and I end up going to the University of Kentucky and I was studying to play the viola. Yeah, playing the viola. Let me tell you about that experience in regards to the orchestra. I sucked. I was no virtuoso. So I knew I wasn't gonna make money playing the viola in the orchestra. And I was lost in the sauce. I was 24 at the time, not sure what I was gonna do with my life. And so my wonderful Aunt Connie, she told me, would you consider joining the military? And I kind of looked at her like she was on liquid crack. I'm like, I don't know about that. However, that's when I happened to meet Staff Sergeant Hernandez. Wow, he was fine. He was all that in a bag of Dorito chips. That's how fine he was. He got my attention real quick. I was mesmerized. He looked amazing in that uniform. He articulated his words. He explained the Army life. And I loved how confident he was and how professional. And I thought to myself, I want to be like him. I know I would look amazing in that uniform. I'm going to join the Army. One problem, I knew my dad was going to give me a hard time. So my course of action was not to say anything. I would wait after. So I went to MEPS, signed the contract, took the oath, and when I knew I was a property of the United States Army, then that's when I told my father, and my mother as well. Went to basic training in 1993 at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Missouri. And I was one of the very last segregated female companies, and we were taught by all combat armed drill sergeants. All I'll say about that experience is that I thought I was in hell and I was gonna die. But I did graduate, maneuvered to Fort Sam Houston, and became a preventive medicine technician. And I started my Army career. Several years down the road in Fort Knox, Kentucky, around the year 2000, I met my husband, who was a staff sergeant at the time. We fell in love, and he wanted to get married. However, one condition. There was no way we were gonna have children. Understand that. Never, ever, ever, ever are we going to have kids. But regardless of what your religious background is, God, Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it, I believe wholeheartedly God has a really interesting sense of humor, and I got schooled. I know you're going to roll your eyes, and just bear with me. My husband and I, we used a unique form of birth control. It was called a calendar method, and it was working pretty good, actually. You count the days, and when you're ovulating, you're more precautious, or you don't show affection towards your spouse. Understand this. I really suck at math, okay? I really almost failed that part on the ASVAB. So needless to say, that old motto, shit happens, yeah, it does. Several weeks down the road, I'm not feeling right, PT, I'm not able to run, I can't figure it out. And I happen to be at the store, and I look over to my left, and guess what? There's a sale. When you buy 2 pregnancy tests, you get the 3rd one for free. And what girl doesn't like a sale, right? So I got them, even though Miss I'm never gonna have kids knew that she wasn't pregnant. But you have to understand where I'm coming from, right? Every parent that I saw, they looked like they were cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Always chasing the little kids around, they're brats, they're sick, they're tired all the time, and I don't have time for that nonsense. I knew that I was a selfish woman. I value my time, money, my sanity. So there was no way that it was in my calling to be a mother. I get into the bathroom at home, right? And I've really never taken a pregnancy test because I know I'm not pregnant. And so you have to read the instructions and you're going through this whole spiel. And so my NCO mind was coming into effect. You kind of have to correlate taking a pregnancy test by, qualifying on an M4, a moving target. And so as I am trying to deal with this pregnancy test and aim appropriately and, put the urine on it, remember that's a mission in itself, I accomplished the mission and I put it on the sink and I'm waiting for the results. I'm a diverse leader, so I'm able to call one of my girls and talk to her on the phone, just cutting away. And then I look over and I happen to see 2 lines. 2 lines. What? I hang up on my girlfriend. She was mid-sentence, I just hung up on her. 2 lines, there's something not right. Remember, I'm an NCO, so there's something wrong with this. This is defected. And what does a good leader do? Verify, verify, verify. I had the 2 other pregnancy tests, and you better believe I took both of them. They all came up hot. I was pregnant. So I was no longer Sergeant Betancourt. No, I was about to lose my mind, Yoli. And so here I am screaming and crying. My poor husband runs into the bathroom. He sees this crazy woman with her underwear, her pants all the way down her ankle. I'm trying to walk. I'm holding this positive pregnancy test in my hand, crying. And of course, he being the NCO that he is, a very calming person, doesn't base decision on emotion. Well, Yoli, you know it might be defected. Really, dude? What about the other 2? His theory is obviously flawed as I throw them at him. So what does he do as a good leader to deal with the situation? He goes to a position of attention, does an about face, goes to the kitchen, gets a beer, and goes to sit down on the couch and meditate. So it took us about 2 weeks to get used to the idea that I was pregnant. I kept on having this terrible thought in my mind. You know, the Aliens movie, the first one, I had a parasite in my body and it's gonna explode out at any time. But honestly, after 2 weeks, I came to grips with it. And being pregnant was actually a really great experience for me. I enjoyed it immensely. I was glowing, I was jovial, I finally had a chest. And one thing I really did like is the fact that not only was I a female warrior, but I was a sexy female goddess, fertile goddess. And I think I looked pretty good looking in that maternity outfit that they gave to us in the Army. So the months go by, and as an NCO and a soon-to-be mother, sometimes it was very hard for me to distinguish between the 2. Because I remember I would talk to my unborn child, especially when he would try to keep me up in the middle of the night. He would break dance in my stomach, and I'm pretty tired. And all of a sudden, like my drill sergeant stuff started coming out. I'm like slapping on the stomach. Hey, Joker, at ease that nonsense, lights out. Come on, stop moving. So it's kind of funny because the poor kid's not even born, and I'm talking to him like he's a private. Anyway, the day comes, and it's time for me to deliver. And that experience right there showed me that my son was a warrior as well, because he too almost died. You see, when he came out, the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And the doctor started to panic because they thought it was dead. And my husband, as I looked over to my husband, he was like this hardcore Sergeant First Class and holding on to the rail of the hospital bed because he was so afraid, because he couldn't figure out how he was going to tell me that our child was dead. However, a nurse took charge of the situation who was also a female warrior. She said, "Hey, Doc, I got this. Give me the baby." She took that baby. She did something kind of gag reflex with her finger, rubbed him down, and he chose to breathe. He chose to live. And so they take that baby and they wrap him up and they put him in my arm. And I'm looking at this life. I gave life. And I realized I wasn't only lucky to be a woman and lucky to be a female warrior. I was lucky to be a mother. I had been given the honor and privilege to be a mother, and I was in awe. And as I was holding my newborn infant, and he was looking at me with his black hair and black eyes, and I was looking at him, I started talking to God a lot in my mind. And I said, "God, I know it's asking a lot, okay, I know, but please give me a couple of years with my child, please. And then you send me wherever you want me to go." You see, as a female warrior, once we give birth, we have maternity leave for about 6 weeks. We're given 6 months to get back into shape, pass a PT test, and get ready to deploy. And if you're in a deployable unit, by God, you're going. I've seen it many times. as my sister-in-arms say goodbye to their children or their child, their baby that's only 6 or 7 months old. Saying goodbye and getting ready to go in harm's way, not knowing if they return, if their baby is going to remember who they are. Fortunately, at that time in my life, I was in a unit that didn't deploy, and I did get to stay with my baby for 2 years, and it was a blessing. I got to nurse him, I got to see him walk and spend holidays with him. But after those 2 years, it was time to deploy, and I have not been stopping. I've been going nonstop. That first time I deployed, and I was away from my baby, I was really struggling with resiliency issues. You know, how do I deal with the mission, focus on my troops, and deal with the being away from my baby? Because you see, when a woman, a female warrior in the Army, when they get pregnant, they are given a choice to get out of the Army. And many of us as female warriors choose not to do that. And I chose not to do that because though I love my child, and I would do anything for him, I'm his protector. And one way that I protect my baby, I'm going to defend our country. And as I defend our country, I'm going to take care of my soldiers and mentor them and make them the best leaders that they can be to take my place if I die or have to transition out. So the years have gone by. I've dealt with a variety of recruits when I was an AIT platoon sergeant. I've mentored many NCOs out there. I've had an opportunity to make suggestions to our junior officers. And every one of those soldiers that I have met in my life, I see the reflection of my son in their eyes. And that gives me the motivation to do what I do right now, to be the best leader that I know how to be. So I've been away from my son for almost 11 years now, and he's 14. He lives in Fort Benning, Georgia with his father, and I'm here. But I know I still have a strong impact in his life, and I know I'm making a difference. He decided, now that he's a freshman in high school, he decided he was going to join JRTC, and he really enjoys doing that. When they have their little run formations or they're running in formation, he always goes out there and he's yelling the cadence. Don't give up, you gotta deal with it. Don't give up, you gotta deal with it. That was something I taught him when he was like 1 year old. So I know I'm definitely having an impact. But when people come up to him, you see, and they say, why are you in JRTC? He holds his head up high. And he says, because I'm going to become a warrior like my mother. Master Sergeant Betancourt out. Thank you.